Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me is my co-host, John Bristowe. How are you doing, John?
Good. What episode are we up to now? 80 something?
11T7. So
Okay, so this guy's apparently doing virtual squats. Perfect.
So it's
gotta make
more
sure
of
it's well supported. Beautiful.
It's a prank video. So the guy takes his Oculus to the gym. He's telling people like he's doing virtual weights and he's asking them to spot him. And it's absolutely hilarious, like people's reactions. And he's really like selling it hard too, right? So you could see he's getting into it.
Let's get the virtual weights going.
He's like, hey, you grab my elbows, hurry! Like he's pretending like it's really heavy and stuff. It's too
Beautiful.
funny. But I know how much you love VR, so I thought,
yes, of course,
I'd share.
Awesome. I think that's enough of that. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate
it. I know you couldn't live without seeing that.
No.
All right. So back to some real news. Let's jump over and talk a little bit about .NET. There's been some .NET stuff happening the last couple days. Let's get this up on screen here, and there we go. Now that Apple has VR, everyone will own one soon. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll get into that in a little bit. We'll talk about what that's going to cost you. I think everyone is a bit of a reach. I don't think it's going to be an everyone thing. All right. Release candidate 1 of .NET 8 is available. You know what that means, John?
What?
Well, it says it right here. The next biggest virtual event is back November 14th through the 16th. That means .NET 8 is shipping on the November 14th.
There you go.
So you could save the date. That's going to be .NET Conf.
Yes.
That's the annual release event for .NET 8. So the release candidate is out. That means there were big breaking changes and all the good things.
Yes.
So I was giving a webinar yesterday, and it was a migration workshop from web forms to .NET 7.
Mm-hmm.
And right the night before the workshop, the release candidate ships. They update Visual Studio. Visual Studio brings in the release candidate, and the side-by-side installation broke everything in the workshop. So the first 10 minutes of the workshop was me uninstalling the update from Visual Studio.
Perfect. I thought they didn't do that anymore. I thought they didn't. Oh, did you have the preview installed? Is that why it went immediately to RC1?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I thought it only installed that with Visual Studio Preview, and it was installed on my Visual Studio not Preview edition. So it was a little hectic. I was sweating bullets for a few minutes during the workshop. But back to the topic at hand. The RC is out. If you have Visual Studio installed, you'll probably get it by the automatic updates. There's updates to Visual Studio itself, Entity Framework, ASP.NET Core, Maui, all the things. All the things got big updates. So let's talk a little bit about ASP.NET Core. There's actually a great video out there on the .NET. Let's see where. I think is it listed on here? I thought it was on here. Or maybe we got to go to the other site. I'll go to the other site in a minute to show you where it's at. There's a really great video of Dan Roth outlining these things. So if you want to go check that out, it's on the .NET website. Just click live up at the top. It's really easy to find. But the Blazor, big Blazor enhancements are here. They shipped the auto render mode for Blazor, which is really cool stuff. So Blazor, if you're not in the know, or maybe you are, it uses WebAssembly to do .NET stuff on the client side. And people have complained that the size of .NET is a little large. It's roughly a meg. It's not really that big, but it does cause a little bit of a delay the first time you hit a web page. So with the new version of Blazor, there's this thing called auto render mode. What it will do is it will run Blazor server side, and the first time you hit the page, you'll immediately get the content delivered. It'll be interactive. It's using WebSockets to do everything instead of using WebAssembly on the client. And then it's downloading resources in the background. The next time you visit that same page, it's running all WebAssembly. So that's really cool. That's something.
Are people really complaining about the size? 1 meg? That doesn't seem like a huge.
It doesn't, but you know, people like to complain.
I've seen images bigger than that.
That's my argument. Images, on the other hand, typically don't stop the website from running. You know what I mean? So you can have an image downloading and it usually doesn't break interactivity.
That is fair.
Interactivity isn't paused. You do, however, get that annoying jarring thing where
you've just paused.
You're reading like this section of the web page and that giant image loads in and it goes like this. You ever done that? I hate that. That is like a pet peeve of mine. So you get thrown off as to where you're actually at because the whole page rendering just changed because there's some giant thing that loaded in. But anyway, again, get back on topic. They've solved that problem by doing everything server-side temporarily. And as soon as you navigate to another component or back and forth, to another site and back, it goes immediately back to WebAssembly once the resource is there. So that's really cool. Lots of other really nice updates in regards to like speed and improvements in the framework. So great release for
HTTP3 is on by default.
HTTP 3 is there.
Sorry, it's disabled by default. Excuse me, I misread that. Oh. Disabled by default. My bad.
Disabled.
I thought it was enabled by default. Sorry.
Wonder why it's
What's the justification for that? Yeah, just hit on that. No longer enabled by default by Kestrel. This change returns Kestrel HP Pro back to its .NET 7. We reverted .NET 7 behavior because enabling 3 would cause some antivirus software to prompt whether network access is allowed when an app is launched. I guess maybe they'll probably turn this back on once the antivirus providers get their.
It sounds like they were ahead of their time. They're a little bit too far ahead of the antivirus folks. So they're having firewalls start blocking stuff because they don't know what HTTP 3 is yet. And then it dives into some Blazor and all that stuff. So ASP.NET got some big stuff. Some new templates as well. They streamlined the templating on all the web stuff. So great stuff there. And again, if you go to .NET, the main .NET website, you want to learn more about all this, click on Live TV and then Community Stand-Up. And there's some videos this week, the last 2 here about .NET 8, especially this full stack Blazor tips and updates that was on 2 days ago. They went long on that one, talking about all the new things in .NET. So you want to get like a preview of what's going to be in .NET Conf. Take a look there. We talked about performance improvements in .NET 8 in general. And if I can quit clicking out of the things I'm trying to show you. There we go. They wrote a ginormous blog post. Stephen Toub, I think is how you pronounce Taub.
Taub. Yeah.
All right.
So, he does this every year.
Correction.
So yeah, he does this every year, and I'm like, I got it. It's performant. It's like, but Stephen Taub's like the performance wonk at Microsoft. He's written one every year where he talks about what's new. And it's funny questions coming in the chat. I think that this is a good read. I think that this is definitely required reading for any .NET dev. So good insight there. Yes.
I just want to point out, as I scroll through a little bit of this, keep an eye here on the scroll bar, just to show you how much work he put into this article. It is massive. It is massive. Okay. It has an index, a very large index. So, I mean, it's very thorough. It tells you like the setup criteria and everything. So, there's some really interesting stuff in there.
The most
Um,
interesting one is the tiering and dynamic Pigo. So if you the top link there, you see how it says JIT and then tiering dynamic Pigo. This is the one that actually got referenced a lot in the community. I thought I read through this, and basically it's a way in which you the way that the JIT works relative to optimizations during runtime. And
mhm.
so in particular, .NET has, this was introduced, I think, in .NET 6, where you have this concept of tiers. So if you hit a method over and over and over again, it can get either elevated or not to a certain tier. And when it's been optimized and JITted, for example. And so this is a facility that's now on by default. And this was, I think, something you had to opt into in .NET 7. And so Stephen goes through all the reasons for doing that. I read this, it was quite interesting. There is a sort of control flow diagram that he also has, I think, near up the top of that section, where he talks about, like, why a decision is made, not this one, but the one above it. So R2R is ready to run. That's an acronym meaning ready to run. And then there's somewhere in there, there's a control flow diagram that asks the question, like, is this ready to run? Is this, what is the decision tree for determining what tier to elevate code to, etc. So lots of MSIL, lots of awesome stuff. But basically what this means is that JITted code runs a lot faster. And so there's some interesting changes that have come through in .NET 8.
There's some stuff in regards to reflection and where is it? So there's reflection and what's it called? We've talked about this before on the show. I just saw it. That's why I'm drawing a blank, because I literally just looked at it.
Frozen collections. We've talked about frozen collections. We've talked a lot about this stuff. Yeah.
Let's see. Not native AOT, but source generation was in here as well. So
source generators. Yeah.
Yeah, source generators were used to speed up some things as well.
Okay.
And I don't see it now. I could have swore I just read that somewhere. I know it's in the article. It's so massive, though, like finding it's going to be an issue. But we could look at reflection, see if it's under there, because I remember when I was reading through some of this, there was basically they added some source generation tools for certain scenarios where reflection was being used, and it sped it up massively. And if you go through this enough, you will find it.
My favorite one my favorite part of Steven's articles is the comment section, because the comments he always gets is, like, quite funny, actually. Like, everyone's like, all right, I got it. It's like, it's performant. I'll take your word for it, because they're so big, So
here we go. Here it is. This was the big one. This was in regards to, what's the topic here? I'm trying to find the topic. Geez, this thing is massive. Configuration, I guess. So they were loading.
That would make sense, because configuration would drive that to a certain extent.
And then it was doing, like, serialization on a JSON and everything else. So they decided, let's do this with source generation instead. And this is a pretty significant change, I would say. It's a real big change.
Yeah, because if you think about it, configs have to do that conversion where you've got this textual representation of whatever it is that is representing the config runtimes. Sorry, the runtime configs, rather. And so, yeah, okay.
Fuel Snabble's not a big fan of source generators, by the way. He's made that clear a few times in chat.
All right.
So, yeah, probably because they're hard to troubleshoot, but, so is all the other compiler stuff that we deal with. So I almost need article there.
I know. I almost need, like, a troubleshooter for this article,
Yeah, I think I need a degree to read it. I think that's my problem. I haven't seen...
You can read it, just it's terse, that's all.
I haven't seen bytecode in a while, and there's plenty of that, so, like, this stuff here is complete gibberish to me these days.
Oh, those are just assembly statements. So move, register.
Just assembly. Yeah, no big deal. It's
It's
we all
not.
read
Seriously,
assembly.
you're going from one register to the next. That's what those move instructions are, basically.
I mean,
So those
I've
are
written
memory
this
addresses
stuff
there.
25 years ago, but that's the one time
Assembly's
it
not that bad.
ever
Assembly's
came in
pretty
handy.
simple. Assembly's pretty simple from a very high level. It's just like,
It's simple unless you want to get into the complexities of how it really works.
constructing
All
it in
right.
your head is the complex part. So
Yeah. It comes in handy every now and then when you got to do shift registers and that type of fun stuff. But let's see, balancing user updates with security best practices. What was this post about? It's also on the.
So this is
That's
an
their
article
blogs.
from Christine. This is talking about Visual Studio. And so the second paragraph nails it there, basically talking about how user permissions in Visual Studio applying administrative updates. So up until now, you're scrolling past it, just second paragraph. So it says second paragraph. You're in the third, fourth paragraph now.
My bad.
There you go. Up
Sorry
until
about that.
now. Up until now, we've had a bit of a catch-22 situation with respect to Visual Studio Installer, which is the tool that installs and updates the Visual Studio product. The installer requires admin permissions to use because it writes to protected areas like the registry, for example. However, if the user is running the installer and doesn't have the required elevated permissions, they are blocked from using the installer's functionality. Thus, when organizations follow security best practice and limit user permissions, this can hinder the developer's ability to acquire the latest functionality bug fixes. So what they're doing now is standard users, says right there, standard users can now update and modify Visual Studio. So this is pretty important in my view because this was a constant problem, especially when working in lockdown environments where, you wanted to do right by, your environment and stay up to date, etc. And so now you can see there, we are excited to announce a new feature designed especially for developers who have limited permissions on their machines. The purpose of this feature is to give developers with restricted permissions better control of their development environment by enabling to update or modify their installation at will. So this is, I think, a nice improvement. So we're adjusting permissions feature in 17.7, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a nice change, I think. And I think changes like this are important, especially, I think it's important that people recognize, like, principle of least privilege is important. You want to make sure that users aren't shooting themselves in the foot. But if you can have an experience by which you can actually do updates and do right by your developers, which is an important audience, then I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned this because I was writing instructions for this workshop that I gave earlier this week, and I actually put this in here because I've given enough workshops to know that this is a deal breaker.
Sure. Yep.
So what I picture, the workshop is written. It was virtual this time, but sometimes these things are in person, and I'll fly somewhere to a conference or event, and we sit down and we're all in the conference room, and it's like, all right, let's all start the workshop, install this thing, and you see like 3 out of 100 people just freeze, like, yeah, I can't.
Sure.
I'm not allowed to do that. Like their IT hasn't given them permission to do that. So
yes, they haven't
letting
blessed
them know,
WPF.
yeah, put it in the prerequisites. So hopefully people read it before they come to an event and get stalled out at the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, this thing didn't get a lot of media attention. It didn't really get picked up in the news. I saw this. I was like, holy Dinah, this is awesome. Because this, I've been through this a ton, as I'm sure you have, is that this is an important change, I think. And I think one that a lot of developers will welcome.
Absolutely. And speaking of updating Visual Studio, the new Preview 2 has arrived.
Mads is doing the classic YouTuber sort of like, check it out. Yeah, so we've got 17.8 Preview 2 now available for Visual Studio. So a bunch of changes. I won't bore you to death by reading them all, but lots of stuff going.
I think I'm going to have to do a special stream on my experience with Visual Studio Preview and send it to the folks on the VS team because I've not had good luck with it personally.
Oh.
Yeah, so we were doing a stream earlier this week. If folks in chat were there, you'll know. But we're doing some Blazor development, and like the language services were lagging behind really bad, and it was doing this really annoying thing where it was recognizing a lot of IntelliSense things as I was typing and swallowing keystrokes. and like you're trying to type and you're jamming words together because it's swallowing your spaces. And I was just pulling my hair out. I ended up closing it out and going back to the other Visual Studio. I was like, I need to, when I have time, not on a live stream, like I need to send some feedback to the team because this is not working for me. So I'm going to have to try the new version, give it a shot before I complain. But if it's still doing it, I'm going to have to give some feedback to the team, see if they can fix some of this stuff. It's just, if anybody else out there is having these issues, let me know. Because like it was just not working.
Some good trolling in the chat there, Ed. So
What's that?
some good trolling in the chat there.
Notepad will never fail you. Yeah.
Yes.
The Razer experience in Visual Studio is not good. I haven't tried Visual. In Visual Studio, Visual Studio Preview, it was not good. Visual Studio was okay. Like it wasn't keeping up. Like I was dealing with nullability stuff, and you get like the green squiggle warnings. And I would fix the issue and the warnings wouldn't go away. And I would have to like totally just clean and rebuild the entire project. And then I'd go to the next warning and click on it and all the warnings would disappear. And I was like, oh, geez, like I can't work like this. Speaking of IDEs though, there are alternatives out there. And if you're into Rust, there's a brand new IDE for Rust development, which this one caught me by surprise, John, and not because Rust isn't favorable or anything like that, but I thought Rust was covered by one of their other IDEs. Do we need a dedicated IDE for Rust?
Why not? Come on. So RustRover is a new IDE from the folks over at JetBrains who make a ton of great IDEs. And say hello to RustRover. I don't know the name so well. They could have gone with, the crab sort of thing, but maybe they stayed away from that. But yeah, double R. There you go. RustRover. So kind of rolls off the tongue there. So if you're into Rust and you're looking for an IDE and you're looking to break out of, whatever you're using these days, this might be an option for you.
Interesting stuff. Wonder how they keep up with all their different IDEs. I'm sure they have like a shared core like IDE and then they break off into different branches or something. I can't imagine how they maintain all these things. They've got a lot of IDEs over there at JetBrains.
Yeah, I think it's partly due to the language server protocol, the LSPs, that helps a lot. So if you're an IDE vendor, you're going to leverage LSPs big time. Just support eBNF.
Switching to Threadripper Pro in hopes of getting VS to keep up. The Threadripper? That's a CPU, right?
I think it's the core for AMD chips.
Gotcha. I haven't been keeping up with the chipsets lately. I need to jump back on.
Right.
I haven't had to build.
I'm not even a gamer.
I
know. I'm not even a gamer, and I still try and read up just because I'm desperate for
tons of cores. TM.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what we need is tons of cores. I don't even remember what I'm running on right now. I know it's a i9. That's all I remember. It's an i9 and it does everything very well. It's only about 2 years old though, so.
I'm rocking the new M2 on the new MacBook Pro. I've got the MacBook Pro 16 with 96 gigs of RAM, which I know sounds like an odd number. And
that's a lot of RAM. Holy cow.
I've got the latest M2 Max CPU, GPU, NPU, whatever you want to call it. It's a monster. It's pretty awesome.
96 gigs of RAM? What does one do with 96 gigs of RAM? I have to know. Like what?
Well, I edit a lot of videos, so
Yeah, I guess you don't really
transitions
hit a swap drive too often. So the thing that's weird about that, like
Docker loves RAM.
The whole RAM conversation, RAM and solid state disks are getting so fast. Like, when are we going to hit the point where it's just is easy to have a unified memory across the whole thing? You think we'll get there?
This is part of it of what Apple's doing, right? So they've got Apple's got its CPU, GPU, RAM, sort of kind of all baked into one. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got 32 bits or 32 bits. Yeah, 32 megs.
I hope you have
Gigs.
32 bits.
Gigs, 32 gigs on this machine here. But it seems to keep up pretty well even when I'm doing video stuff. But I've also got the NVIDIA card on it that will
I
churn
also
through
run
video.
I also run Chrome, which loves RAM as well. So
Yeah, see, I ditched Chrome because it was killing my machine. I went over to Edge. It finally drove me away.
yeah, okay.
So WASI support in Go.
Yes.
We've got the WebAssembly. I forget it's server WebAssembly. What's the WASI thing again? What's the system interface? Yeah, so you can run it server side, etc. Or
Yeah, so Go 121 shipped, I think, a few weeks ago, and they've got a new port targeting in this. So this is a goose value, which is like the way in which you target operating systems, etc. So you specify WASI P1, and this allows you to emit binaries that are compatible with WASI runtime execution environments. So WASI, or the WebAssembly System Interface, as Ed rightly points out, is basically a way in which you can run these executables. I have espoused for a long time that WASI is a great solution for plugins and plugin architectures. But a lot of folks are targeting this, and so leveraging this requires just compiler magic. This is the benefit, or I guess the beauty of Go, is that most of the investment around Go is done around the compilers or the tool chain. The tool chain for Go is just phenomenal. This is why you get such great portability, etc. And so, yeah, they've added this now to 1.21, and I thought it was interesting. I thought this is something that I think is warrants some attention. It's WebAssembly is becoming a thing more and more.
like Fuel Snabble says, say goodbye to Docker and hello to WASI. That's the new runtime. It's new container. We'll see. This was a little bit more of a low-level article that I found. I thought it was interesting. If you've ever done JavaScript, you've probably, or any coding, but JavaScript in general, the way it handles states, times, and all that stuff can be tricky. And there's the multiple ways that things handle timing, even in .NET and in JavaScript. But this author Mads writes that he needed a digital clock for some component on his webpage.
Okay.
I don't know why, but that's what he says here. And he started out with this little JavaScript based animation and had some issues with it. Just didn't, it lagged out the browser. It didn't look right.
He's doing it in JavaScript. Why not do it in CSS?
Went to Google Bard
Asking
for
Bard.
help. It gave him
Bard
3
can't help you.
examples that might have been a little bit easier on the browser, refreshing the HTML.
Yeah, he did the right thing. He went to
screen.
CSS. Yeah, he went to CSS. This is the answer for everything.
Yep, ended up going to CSS, wrote it in CSS, and that was the more performant result.
Yeah, of course.
And then put the beautified version of it on CodePen.
Makes sense.
So I thought this was just a pretty cool little article because it had to deal with troubleshooting a real problem and how he went about it. I always love these type of posts where it's something that the person actually worked on, what problems they ran into, how they got over it. So that one was fun.
Right, and then, in WebGL. I love the comments here.
Yeah, great. There you go. Dates and times in JavaScript, though. Oof. This was another little tip that I found that I actually didn't know about. I don't do typically too much debugging in the browser, but I know the tooling is phenomenal in there.
Yeah.
Do a lot of debugging in Visual Studio, and then when things hit the fan inside of the web browser, dig through HTML, set breakpoints in some JavaScript, or you can even put breakpoints on CSS events and things like hover and whatnot. It's really wild. And never dug deep enough in to see this one, but you actually set a breakpoint when a URL contains a path. So this was totally interesting. I just didn't know it was buried in there. And when you've got code that is in your app that's going to do a fetch request, you can match on that URL and put a breakpoint on when it's fetching. So that's super handy. So take a look at that one if you didn't know about it. Like
I would
didn't.
also encourage folks to use Fiddler. So.
Absolutely, that's a good time to
or
mention
some proxy
Fiddler.
trace. It doesn't matter. Use Wireshark for all I care, but use something that you can actually see bits flying on the wire. You want to see what's happening, what's being emitted on the wire.
So now's a good time.
The shameless. There you go. Yes.
we're gonna get even more shameless with this because we're gonna do a little bit here because it is the Telerik Fiddler 25th anniversary of Fiddler.
Oh wow!
Get that right?
I'm sure Eric's just like going like this the whole time.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I got that right. 25 years. Does that sound right to you? 25 years?
Roughly speaking, like Eric wrote it, to debug the image service in Office. So yeah, circa late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to double check here. Let me make sure before we do anything else, because and I pulled my screen down because I have to look through company email to make sure this is correct. I don't want to put the wrong information out there.
That's all right.
So what we're going to do, John, is
we should get Eric to join this show and talk about Fiddler. Can grill him. He doesn't really target it too much. He's more on the security side. I interviewed him a few months ago, and we got talking about it. And he's like, "Yeah, you can talk about Fiddler if you want." Like, I love Eric. He's just like kind of like nonchalant. He's like, "Yeah, whatever," you know. So.
Let's see if I can find.
20th, I don't know what log is.
25th. Okay.
So in the comments.
Off by 5 years.
Okay, 20th.
So 20th anniversary. So they're doing a little video montage, John.
Nice.
For the Fiddler 20th anniversry.
Can I get in on that? I would love to say something nice about Fiddler.
So let's do it now. All right. So well, we're in the middle of a show, but our good my good friend here at Progress, Cindy, on our team, she will be able to edit whatever we talk about out of the video. So I'll just let her know that at about 37 and change minutes in, that we've got a promo celebrating the Fiddler 20th birthday. So whatever you'd like to say, John, go ahead.
Happy birthday, Fiddler. 20 years. Wow. I remember when I was 20. That was a long time ago. I'm over twice the amount of age that Fiddler is. That's really embarrassing. Anyways, if you're a developer of any type, you're typically going to hit the network. I think we all do at some point in our coding lives. And if you're not using a tool to see what's happening on the wire, then you're really limiting your ability to debug, figure out what's going on with your code. Why is it not working? Why is it not connecting? 302, 404, 500, what are all these HB errors? I don't understand a thing. If you want to get a sense of how these things work, if you want to compose queries on the fly, you want to see a trace of what's happening on the network, you've got to use a tool like Fiddler. I consider Fiddler part of my essential developer tool belt. You should as well. Everyone's got their hand pick of tools, and Fiddler is definitely up there in terms of what I would like to see when utilizing my tool set. It's right up there with my IDE. The two are kind of like peanut butter and chocolate. Good IDE and a good network trace proxy. So check out Fiddler. It's at telerik.com/Fiddler. Check out Fiddler Everywhere, which is available for Mac and other variants of OSs, etc. So if you're not using Fiddler today, you owe it to yourself to use it. And happy birthday, Fiddler.
I couldn't have said it better myself, John. That was,
I think you could have.
That was amazing. I could have said it shorter maybe, but not better.
Sorry. Opine about Fiddler. Yes.
So yeah, that's my 2 cents. I absolutely love Fiddler, and I've been watching it grow up for the past 20 years. So happy birthday, Fiddler.
I remember it. I remember I was so young. Right.
Let's see. I've got to throw a little bit of admin towards the chat room real quick.
No worries.
We're not accepting promotions right now, so you're gonna have to be blocked.
That's all right.
Go be a bot somewhere else.
Silly bots.
Here we're trying
Twitch is for people.
We are trying to have a shameless plug, and
Yes.
we've got people
Shamelessly plugging.
panhandling in the chat. How dare you interrupt our shameless plug
Our plugging.
celebration?
That's right.
With your own. Dare you? Speaking of, John,
I know,
the best,
God, such a
the best
good
segue.
Perfect.
What's happening at Octopus Deploy? Do you have anything new and
nice recovery.
highlighted?
Nice recovery. Yes, exactly. We shipped a new major version of Octopus. We use Calver for our versioning. So 2023.3 shipped last week. We've got a bunch of features there. If you're not utilizing, this is like the same promo for Fiddler. If you're not utilizing a deployment tool, what are you doing? Yeah, you're just throwing it over the wall, hoping for the best. Just shoveling binaries over the proverbial wall, hoping your users can accommodate your deployments. If you are doing that, stop the madness. Use a deployment tool. Octopus Deploy can help. So 2023.3 is our latest release, and you can check it out at our What's New pages at octopus.com/what's new. And we've got a lot of really cool features in there. Definitely worth checking out. And go to our website, make it your homepage. If not, a bookmark. We appreciate it.
I just want to say, John, like we could leverage your services. I mean, if anybody in chat needs like a boardwalk pitchman, sell me this pen.
Snake oil? What am I, a snake oil salesman? Is that what you're talking?
John's available for hire for
just rub it on your elbow. Gigs. Fiddler. It gets rid of all the aches and pains. There you go. Yes.
If you need to sell something and sell it fast, Bristow's your man.
I feel like I come out with the vaudeville humor. We're like, hello, my baby. All right.
Moving on. Speaking of, people that like to sell stuff, Apple.
Yes.
I already expect...
Your reaction right there is exactly, when you say Apple and you sigh, that's exactly my reaction these days, especially when it comes to these stupid Vision Pro, whatever they are.
I expect people, like, there's like two takes on this for me. It's like, yeah, if you want to get into the Apple Vision Pro, as the headline says here, you'll need the Apple earbuds, whatever those are called.
AirPods.
Yeah, whatever. And
whatever.
I refuse to get into the Apple branding marketing words. It's just ridiculous. Okay. They broke me when they started calling things Retina displays. It's like, it's HD. Just give me a resolution. Just stop. Just stop with the trademark marketing fluff. Anyway, their earbuds and their watch and their phone to take full advantage of the Vision Pro. So you're talking about a device that's already $3,500, and then you're adding a $1,200 phone and a $200 pair of earbuds and a $600 watch to the mix. So now you're talking like $4-5 to fully take advantage of this thing.
What's the problem, man?
But the other take is, if you're buying this ridiculous headset for $3,500, you probably already have these other things, right? So it's not an addition to, it's, by the way, you're going to be able to use these things. So it depends on how you want to read into this article, but from what I guess,
let's go back to that. Let's go back to that image right. This is my life. I want boarding a plane.
Can you spot me?
You want? Imagine you're coming down the aisle and you have to sit next to this person. Like, oh God. All right.
I won't. I almost. This is a family-friendly show. There was an incident on Delta. We'll just say a bathroom incident, and I'm picturing this poor person just not understanding what's happening because they're wearing this device. We'll talk off the air. We won't go.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
We won't go into the brown humor here, but I can just picture like a disaster happening right next to you in the seat, and you're just like oblivious. Anyhow, so people were speculating that there's integration points with all of the hardware. I guess there were some things they alluded to in the latest event that got people speculating and talking. So this kind of came out of it, and then there was another post here. Let's see if okay, that's the everything announced. This one, nope, that's not it either. It might be wrapped up in this one. Let's take a look. It was the
All right.
Apple Watch. Now, the Apple Watch. If I was going to be a fan of anything Apple, I'd say the Apple Watch is probably one of those things. It's definitely ahead of the market. It's got a lot of amazing features and nice display, battery time, all of that. The problem is you have to own all the Apple ecosystem to be able to use the darn thing, and I'm not going to jump ship on a phone. Like I said, I'm not going to go in a $5,000 kit because I like the watch that they sell. But that's me. But it's a nice piece of hardware, and they come out with this new feature where you can tap your fingers together.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
yeah, yeah.
it's able to listen.
You can
through,
double tap with your fingers like this, and it can listen
Yeah.
to your wrists and all that. So listen.
So the immediate speculation is this is going to be some kind of gesture for the Vision Pro. So that came out of this somehow.
Great.
I don't know why they assumed that. I don't know if it's something they cued from a video or just people making logical connections, but yeah, that was it. But
This
watch
reminds me of
great,
the skit
man.
this reminds me of the skit from Bill Burr. Why don't you just go and help them build your robot replacement? So
Yeah.
it's like they're just waiting for the chip insert into your brain.
So, again, it's a great piece of hardware. If it connected to an Android, I might actually consider buying one. Until that happens, then
That will never happen, dude.
Not for
never.
me. Not going to be for me. Just not going to be for me. But it is a nice looking piece of hardware there.
That's the Ultra that you're looking at there, the Ultra 2.
Yeah. I mean, these things are really nice. The one I've got that cost me a fraction of the price does some of these things, and I enjoy using it. So I bet that one's really cool. Not $700 plus cool, but cool. Speaking of Apple Vision Pro and the AR VR universe.
Yes.
What's the Metaverse? I talked about this on the show a couple months ago, and I said, if you're not, a big fan of the Apple Vision Pro, or maybe you are and you don't care about the Meta offerings, the common denominator there is Unity. It's deploying to all of these platforms with these 3D based applications. Apparently Unity was listening to the show, John, because they've upped their fees. So they've instituted this new per install pricing, and I am not sure.
Per runtime.
Yeah, per runtime. So if you've got, and it starts at like 20K of revenue. So once, say you've got 1 million people downloaded your app, and they're, you're making a little bit of money off of it, all of a sudden every installation of that app now costs up to 20 cents per install. So that could add up very quickly. Just do the math on that. So adds up fast.
Goodbye trials.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a scalable thing. Depending on if you're on Enterprise or Pro, it's 20 cents per install if you're on Personal or Plus, and then there's different offerings on the Enterprise side of things. But at any rate, they're cashing in on their customer base. So people feel like it is, quote, the old bait and switch.
Mm-hmm.
So people are not happy about it. Any commentary, John? What do you think?
I think that companies need to be careful when they, especially with developers. I think if you are riding on the coattails, your popularity is riding on the coattails of the blood, sweat, and tears of an audience, especially a passionate audience that loves you. You've got to be really careful about the changes you make around things like this, because they're going to be your strongest advocates. But if you do wrong by them, they're going to get really upset because they've made the investment. It's not just the fact that I understand maybe Unity's position on this is like, we're a publicly traded company, we got to make money, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I get all that. But you have to remember that practitioners, developers, whatever you want to call them, they are your strongest audience, and they are the ones who are the most passionate about your technology, and they're going to be espousing your technology. They're going to carry that technology with them to their next job. So it's going to be Unity forever and ever, all men, whenever they go to their next gig, their next dev shop that they build a game for example, their next title. They're gonna be in the boardroom saying we should use Unity because I know it and everyone loves it, blah 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 blah. Right? If you do things like this and you piss off your primary audience, which is for your primary audience here, Unity's looking at it from a user's perspective. It's like, well, it's the users. We've got to we have to maintain services, and I understand all that, but at the same time, it's like, look, you're really hurting your primary core emotionally charged audience, which is your developers, by doing this, because you're putting baggage on top of, like, the technology is great, awesome, continue to build on that, make the tool set better, etc. But when we start doing things like this, it feels like a cash grab, and it really upsets developers. So
I agree with the cash grab part of it. I'll pay for things if the pricing is upfront. What I don't like is when you try to hide it to where it makes it hard to calculate. It makes it hard to justify and hard to reason about what you're getting charged for and how you're getting charged for it. Like, just looking at this here, like, I'm confused. Like, it says per install structure. So install, like, if I'm gaming, sometimes my games are cross-platform, and I've got, an installation on my Windows PC. I've got the same game that runs on my phone. Maybe it's also in VR. Like, is that 3 installs now for one person that paid one price for the game? Like, how is that affecting me? So,
and here's the thing that upsets me sometimes when companies make these decisions, because I know that the marketing department's going to be like, well, actually, technically, we're going to get around that by doing blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I get all that. The problem with all of this is that developers don't care. What developers care about now is the fact that you've instituted this. They're like, all that developers care about is, I want to have a successful title. That's what I want to have, and I'm working my butt off to do this. Now you're making me do additional emotional and mental labor, Unity, to figure out if I have a successful title. I now have to factor in costs associated with that because of this restriction, I'm assuming. So you're basically putting a burden on the footsteps, the entrance of a game developer who's only trying to make a successful game. That they do this because game developers are like the most passionate people in the industry. And because it's really hard, you have to make something that is both technically correct and emotionally interesting. Like, you could have the most technically correct program, which is a game. It works well, no bugs, no crashes, whatever. But if no one cares about it, no one's going to use it. And so it's a hard problem. Developers are tasked with this, especially game developers. They're tasked with this job of creating a successful title. And then here comes along this new program, whatever you want to call it, that says, well, actually, if you have installs, it's going to cost you money. It's like, guys, I'm working my butt off just trying to figure out whether or not I can connect with my audience. Now you're imposing this on me. You're making it harder for me to want to be a game developer. So,
yeah, it looks like it, maybe something to impact the indie devs the most, and that's probably their biggest, most vocal fan base.
Yes.
So we'll see where this goes. It reeks to me of the data cap, like that type of thing, or paying per minute to talk on the phone.
Sure.
These things that aren't really tangibly, like, applied to the cost incurred by using the service. Like data caps were ever, a realistic thing. There's no limitation on bits that you're going to ship across the wire. Like, where did data caps come from other than a cash grab? So it definitely reminds me of that. You guys still deal with the data caps there in Australia, don't you?
They've gotten smart about it. What they do now is actually mobile access in Australia is actually quite excellent. 5G, what happens is if you pass your cap limit, it just downgrades your speed. That's all.
Yeah, we get a lot of that here with mobile. We don't get it for home internet, though. So
I have unlimited home internet. They've changed all that now. So Australia's gotten a lot better.
Oh, excellent. It's been like that here for quite some time, but I knew fairly recently, like within the last 10 years or something. There's
America, come on.
Our infrastructure is not great. I'm not a big fan of it. We pay a lot more than other countries do for our internet, so I'm definitely not on a soapbox here by any means. Anyhow, Microsoft will stop accepting new third-party printer drivers in Windows.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about this. I can't tell whether I'm happy or sad about this. Like, part of me thinks, oh, good, we can standardize this and we'll have the baseline. Just make the thing print. But then at the same time, I've had my experiences with printers. Believe me, there's that scene out of Office Space where they take the printer out into the back and with the bat, and they take the bat to the printer. Like that's me. Like the amount of printers I've gone through, the amount you have to spend for ink, all that sort of stuff. Anything that make this better would be good. But basically the premise here is like, look, universal standards for printing and scanning is going to be the way going forward for Microsoft, at least according to this article. And so the caveat there is that if you have a special feature on your printer, I don't know what, maybe you press a button and it does something magical or special. Most printers are kind of the same now. This is like a highly commoditized sort of thing, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think this helps with like security for one. There's always a lot of like if you type in like HP printer driver, good luck in hitting something that's not like spyware right away. So having something that's universal and ships with the OS and is plug and play, like we promised in the 90s, would be nice. And then there's a lot of shovelware that comes with these printers.
Oh, yeah.
And I hate that stuff more than anything. I just want the driver. I want the thing to, like you said, I want to click print and I want the thing to spit a page out. I don't want advertisements for ink subscriptions.
Yes.
And all these
you need like an RTX card to run the settings program, basically. Like I don't need a 3D spinning logo of the Brother logo, whatever this is, sort of thing. Yeah. Like I'm fine. Just print. Thank you.
I don't need your 5 and below discount Walmart knockoff Windows Paint along with your printer software. Like, thank you very much. Like, I don't need that. I don't know how many times they've tried to drop that kind of image editing tooling. And the other fun one is like, oh, we integrate with, such and such service that prints photos.
Yes.
Because, like I don't need Walgreens integrated into my printer so I can have photos printed at the photo lab. Just let the printer print. I use this for mainly taxes these days. Like this is about it. Like I hardly ever print anything unless it's tax season, which that's a whole other thing we could rant on for hours.
There you go.
But we're not going to. That is the end of our show for today, John. It is up on my LinkedIn if you want to grab the links.
Awesome.
I will post this in chat as well. I think this is the proper URL for it. Let's try it in an incognito tab. Yep, that'll work. So folks in chat, you want the links, there they are. Grab them from my LinkedIn page. John, it's great chatting with you, my friend.
Yeah.
It's always fun and entertaining. Make sure you wear your VR headset to the gym next time you go. And
why do you do this to me?
Get folks to help spot you while you're deadlifting. I mean, we'll leave it at that. All right, John. Thanks again, man. Take care, chat.